Good day to each and everyone. My name is Fiona Maybe Padero and I'm here to discuss the Comparing of Economic System, Chapter 6, Lesson 2B. And here we are. Welcome to class, and today's agenda is that we are going to discuss the brief definition of socialism, capitalism, and communism, and to compare socialism, capitalism, and communism to the following: conditions, efficiency, employment, and the standard of living. First up, we have socialism. Socialism is a populist economic and political system based on public ownership, also known as collective or common ownership, of the means of production. Those means include the machinery, tools, and factories used to produce goods that aim to directly satisfy human needs. And in terms of economic conditions, we have the government owns major means of production and decides the items and the quantity to be produced. Though private investments are allowed, though they are regulated closely. In terms of economic efficiency, we have limited government regulation has saved many ailing enterprises, and without competition, however, efficiency tends to go down. And in terms of economic efficiency, is that high standard of living with full employment and economic security as future goals, free health care and medical and hospital care, and a great part of wages goes to taxes. And people buy consumer goods freely. So in socialism, the government takes part of in terms of economy or business, though they're regulated most of the time. So we have this two cows analogy, mostly used for these ideologies. So we have this situation. You have two cows. The government takes them and puts them in a barn with everyone else's cows, and then gives you as much as it thinks you need. So this is the two cows analogy used in most cases. This is just a simple explanation to what socialism is. You have two cows, the government takes and puts them in a barn with everyone else's cows. So that means they are regulated. Then they will give you as much as you think you need. So example is that if you are four in a household, so they will give you meat and milk according to your needs for the family. And we have the pros and cons of socialism. All share equally the benefits of productions, and there is no winners and losers, since the government is regulated, the economy is regulated by the government. So there is no competition and efficiency goes down. But high taxes, though these high taxes, even though it's a con, sometimes it's a pros in most cases, because those taxes will go to the government regulated services, just like I mentioned earlier, the free health care, hospital, and medical care. And these are the examples of socialist countries. In Europe, we have Norway, Finland, Denmark, Iceland, and France. And we have one country for the South America, which is Venezuela. Next up, we have capitalism. Capitalism is an economic system in which private individuals or businesses own capital goods. The production of goods and services is based on supply and demand and the general market known as the market economy, rather than through central planning known as planned economy or command economy. This is the capitalism is the common and known use in most countries, by the way. In terms of economic conditions, that nearly all means of productions are owned by individuals, not by the state. So individuals, so the government doesn't regulate the means of production there because they are owned by individuals, not by the state or the government. Next up is that we have consumer expenditures determine what goods and quantity of these goods is to produce. Example is that the mentioned earlier for capitalism is that the demand and supply. If the demand goes up, then the supply will also goes up. It really depends on the consumer. Next up, we have in terms of economic efficiency. And economic efficiency is that free competition can mean greater efficiency and lower prices. Freedom to make a profit also means investors risk loss. So there's a free competition in capitalism. Next up is that in terms of employment and standard of living is that high standard of living with full employment and economic security as goals. Incomes are based on an individual's contribution to production and believe in minimum standard of living. So incomes are based on individuals' contribution to production. So if you have money and you have large sum of money in your business, so that's your contribution to production. Next is the same situation, the same analogy, which is the two cows analogy in capitalism. And we have different pictures. In this situation is that you have two cows. You sell one and buy a bull. In this case, you send one cow to buy a bull, so it means you can breed your cow, and then you can have money in that. So you can breed for that animal, and you have not only that, you have the bread and the meat and the milk, of course. This is what you call this some kind of opportunity you make. Next up, we have the pros and cons of capitalism. Rewards in pros rewards individual success, and individual success leads to common good. So in cons of competition leads to winners and losers, and not all succeed. So yes, of course, in this, especially if you're a capitalist countries, that the competition is too high, and of course there's the winners and the losers in most cases, and sometimes the businesses will go bankrupt and the others will have high money or large sum of money, become rich, and not all businesses are going to succeed in most cases. Next up, we have the capitalism countries. We have these: Hong Kong, Singapore, New Zealand, Switzerland, Australia, Ireland, United Kingdom, Canada. These are the countries that use capitalism. Next up, we have communism. Communism is an economic ideology that advocates for a classless society in which all property and wealth are communally owned instead of by individuals. So, in terms of economic conditions, is that the government owns nearly all means of production. So there is no such thing as private in here. Not unlike for socialism and capitalism, that you can actually own private means of production. That state plans and directs all economic activities. So, and the government decides what and how much to produce. So they practically control everything in the means of production. Now, so in terms of economic efficiency, is that production varies from efficient to poor depending on government priorities. So if the government prioritize agriculture, so they will focus on agriculture rather than the others. So production is going high and the others will be low. Next up is that in terms of employment and standard of living, is that full employment, including conscript labor, utilized to achieve the economic goals or the government. Power word for the good of the nation. And the government decides how people are to be rewarded, which is going to be discussed as cons or disadvantage, is that the government decides how people are to be rewarded, which is sometimes biased in the others. And high prices, then few luxuries. So since the communism owns everything in that specific country, there's no such thing as individual or private. Next up, we have the same, another two cows analogy. And here's our situation. You have two cows. You have to take care of them, but the government takes all the milk. So since the government owns everything, so you are just taking care of the cow, and what the cow gives off is, for in this case, the milk. So they're going to take all the milk. And if you need milk, they're just going to give you what they think you deserved or contributed as such in this situation. Next up, we have the pros and cons for communism. Of course, in pros, you have full employment, everything, full employment. Then citizens get what they need. Of course, they get what they need in communism. But in the cons, government decides rewards. So they will just pick who they want to give the rewards, and they have only few luxuries in communism. Only the richest or what they think the government decides for rewards. And next up, we have the communist countries. These are the examples: China, Cuba, Laos, North Korea, and Vietnam. There are only 5 left in the countries who use the communism ideology. And overall, they're going. This table is what we call comparing economic system in a nutshell. So these are the attributes. Factors of production are owned by, in communism, everyone. In socialism, everyone. In capitalism, the individuals. And factors of productions are valued for, in communism, usefulness to people. Usefulness to people in socialism, and the capitalism, of course, it's different, the profit. But the location decided by the communism is not the central plan. In the socialism, the central plan. But in the capitalism, law of demand and supply. From each according to his. In communism, socialism, and capitalism is that all of them is capable of their ability. But to each according to his. In communism, its needs. In socialism, the contribution. In capitalism, is that they have the income, wealth, and the borrowing ability. So there's the comparing of economic system in which we delve or we compare, in which delve the three common ideologies in the world. Three common ideologies used by the world: communism, socialism, and capitalism. In which we do actually know some of them. We actually felt them. We use them in our daily lives. In our government use them. And this is just a run through for what is communism, socialism, capitalism, the definition, and the pros and cons, and what they have in common or what they have in differences. And that's all for this vlog, and thank you for listening to my vlog, and have a wonderful day to each and everyone.